Hey everybody, good morning. It's Scott Stoltz with Create Your Great, and we are about to record a podcast, one of my weekly Create Your Great podcasts, and I'm sitting here with Bart Christoffersen. So before I hit record, I am going to get a little conversation going and get rolling into our recording of another great podcast. Bart and I met last year in 2017, and he was kind and generous enough to sit down with me for an hour. And we had a really good conversation that day.
I think so.
I'm going to let Bart introduce himself in a second as we get the podcast started. And he is currently an MBA student at Boston University right here in Boston. We just played around. We were going to show you some nice Fenway Park and Prudential Center backdrop. But unfortunately, the lighting's not cooperating with us. So our main goal and intention today is recording a really great conversation. Bart is a great human being, a good student who has a lot of great life experience, and we are going to share some of that as we talk through our podcast. So I wanted to go live, so you can check us out on here and listen in for a few minutes, whether you're watching live now or later today, and get some great nuggets of wisdom from Bart Christoffersen, who, by the way, hails from Utah originally, and he's loving the Northeast. So we'll see if he ends up staying here. We're going to talk about some of that today too. Okay? All right, you ready to rock?
Ready.
Okay. Bart, it's great to be back and sharing a room and microphones and cameras with you again. How you been?
Been all right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Doing good. Life is good.
Yeah.
Life is good. So, just trying to stay warm. Got through that monster of a storm. So,
You know, we're getting more.
yeah, that's what I hear.
We're getting more, although where you hail from. Bart's a native of Utah, so cold weather and snow is not, out of your element too much anyway, right?
Pretty familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So how, you and I last spoke in the fall. We met in the fall and we had a great conversation, and I'm so thrilled to have you on the podcast. And again, one of the missions of this podcast and any of the communications I do is to help people get great stories and insight and wisdom from people who are out learning, growing, creating your career path. And I just thought so highly of you and some of the things you had going on in the fall that I wanted to bring you back and have another part 2 of our conversation. And this one we can share in some other mediums. But how's school been going for you?
School is going. I think one of the biggest lessons learned is that grad school is 1,000 times harder than undergrad. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason. So I graduated, I did my undergrad in 2008 and worked for almost 10 years and decided to come back to school. Timing was right, things worked out. Took all the tests, did all the interviews, all that kind of good stuff. And getting back into school is not easy, but I have definitely learned the value of an MBA, kind of what some of the people before me, some of the pioneers of getting their MBAs went through. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely been a learning experience.
When you decided to go back to school to get your MBA, can you share with us, some of what was your mindset originally? Was it, I need this degree is required to get the kind of job? Like, what was your driving and motivating factor when you first decided to go back to school?
Well, I think especially in the beginning, so I've been looking at getting my MBA for 6 or 7 years. And the motivation up until this year was definitely, hey, in order to get up the ladder, to climb the next rung, to get that corner office, I've got to get an MBA. Mm-hmm. That was definitely where I was at. I think this past, the year before I decided to actually go and come back to school, I think the motivation changed to more of, I think it's something I need to do for me, to become a better person, to become a better leader, to, I knew that there were some opportunities for growth. I knew that there were things that I could do to shore up some of the hard skills, whether it was, I'm going into the tech space, and so whether it's programming or database management or whatever that case may be, I can learn some of those skills, but it would also be good to getting some of those softer skills to be a better person, better manager. So it definitely shifted from when I started looking at it.
So you used the term thinking about what I needed to do to get that corner office. So it was originally, or in part, driven by status to reach a certain level, and you've morphed over time into knowing that this opportunity, or understanding that this opportunity helps you with a lot of other life-related skills, right?
Yeah, no, and so I that's exactly what I did. I chased the position, I chased the title, I chased the money. I created a really what people would call a very comfortable life before I came back to school, and realized that once I had gotten there that there were still some things missing. And so for lots of different reasons, but one of those reasons was I wasn't doing something that made me happy. I wasn't doing something that added value in the way I wanted to add value, and ultimately didn't give me a work-life balance that I wanted. Didn't challenge me the way I wanted, and so I figured that the best way to kind of give myself the best chance to choose those things for myself was to come back to school.
We are sitting live, myself and Bart Christoffersen, and for those of you who are listening on the podcast, we are also going live on Facebook. The morning Bart and I are recording this, so for those on Facebook, if you have any questions, we're going to be talking for the next 45 minutes or so. If you have any questions about life as a grad student, as an MBA student, I can tell you, Bart, it would be a great person to run those by. And if you see this, so feel free to comment and share if you have any questions about balancing. We're going to get into some of that now. And even if you see this recorded later on Facebook, feel free to comment, because Bart will see those and he'd be happy to answer some of your questions.
Absolutely.
So, now that you're almost a year in, and you feel like you have a better feel for what life as an MBA student is bringing, and there's so much about your background we can still talk about, but like, where's your mind right now, as far as you just said you were chasing position or chasing money? How do you feel about that right now, without having to worry about explaining an exact position that you want, but where does that sit in your life?
I think in the past it was always the title, right? What could I get, manager or director, or when would it take to, or how much more time would I have to put in to get vice president, was what I was thinking. And then obviously I had a dollar figure assigned with each one of those steps. Now for me it's looking for a culture that will allow me to be me and add value in the way I can best add value. The title for me isn't as important. I mean, yeah, there are certain aspects of companies that I want to participate in, where I think I can be really good at. But for me, it's, can I come in and work my butt off, get things done, and then do other things that are important to me. I have a little family of my own that means a lot to me, so I'd like to be able to spend time with them. And so I'm not into the 80-hour work weeks or the traveling every other week for work kind of jobs or requirements anymore. And so it's, like I said, it's shifted from kind of doing the rat race to what's better for me and what makes me happy.
Do you think maturity, so there's a couple things we can unpack there, including about your family, but even just sticking with just you for a moment, that this is something that you've seen in your experience, not only with yourself, but maybe friends and peers, that over time our priorities, our driving motivators evolve and change and grow, or go from maybe I want to have a certain title to an appreciation of other things that life has in store for you in terms of opportunities. Like, have you noticed this with other students or friends of yours too?
It's interesting. Yeah, there are a few, I think, who have gotten to that place where I'm at. I think in my life, I can speak to me, and the reason that I feel I've gotten to this point is I got to a place in my life where I thought I should be happy based on the title or the money or the. I thought this is it. I should feel what they told me I should feel now, and I didn't. This was before I decided to go back to business school, and I went through and I did all these different. I did an MBTI, the personality test. I did a couple different leadership skills kind of tests to help me figure out where I was strong, where I was weak, what I could be missing, if what I was even doing was something that aligned with who I was. Because these are things I hadn't thought about. And kind of went through just this, hopefully it's not a midlife crisis, hopefully I live, till I'm 90. But this quarter life crisis or whatever, where I started to think, well, what would make me happy? What would? And I'm a person built for connecting with people, working with people, and I'm not one to really step on others on the way up. And so I don't fit what I thought would lead to happiness, or what I was told would lead to happiness. And so I had to shift my aspect or outlook on work and life to fit really who I was rather than
who you thought you needed to be or wanted to be.
Yes.
I'm so glad that you were talking about this, and that's what so many people, I know I struggled with that for a long time, and I met a lot of people who struggled with it, and now in the work that I do now as a career coach, I meet people every single week who have come across a juncture in their life where things aren't living up to expectations and visualizations that they had. They had something in mind, and it hasn't played out as such. And it doesn't mean that their life or their situation is necessarily bad. It's just different. It's just different than what they expected. And, it's hard. I learned from myself, speaking to myself, like when I had those moments in my career that something wasn't what it was cracked up to be or what I expected, I struggled at times to how would I bounce back or adjust. So what are some of the things that you're doing to adjust in your day-to-day life or in your mindset and in your heart, now that you've realized some of what you just shared with us? What are some of the things that you're doing in that adjustment process?
One thing that helps me, you may or may not have done this intentionally, but intentionally, you called out your intention, right? Like we're doing Facebook Live, but your intention was to focus on the podcast. And one thing that I've really tried to be aware and cognizant of is my intent. Am I living aware? Am I living based on what I want to make for my life? What are my intentions for where I want to be in life? And so it comes to, I have a stupid little paper planner that I get made fun of all the time for. Because I plan out my day, I write down things. There are places in my planner where I can be grateful for things, where I can write about lessons learned, where I can write about wins for the day, and that helps me focus some of these things I've learned, like what's really important to me, what I want my day to be like. If it didn't end up like I wanted it to be like, why wasn't it, or what did I learn? And so that little white book has become very powerful for me in how I stay grounded.
Are people making fun of because you're not doing it on your phone and you carry around the book?
Yeah.
It's 2018 and you're not fitting in with the mold, huh?
Yeah.
So, and how do you feel when... Are you capturing as you go along, or do you struggle if you have something in that book but you weren't able to get to it that day, or it didn't work out quite as you saw? Or are you at a place now where you're a little bit more grounded and accepting, the curveballs that we can even see just within one day alone?
Sure, one, and I think that it depends on the day and what it is, but for example, I had just recently had a friend who had a really hard day, right? And so we sat on the phone and talked for 2 hours. It wasn't something on my calendar. It wasn't something that I'd planned for. But it was something that she needed. And I felt like I had the time and that I was available enough to do that. And so, just a small example, but it was more important than whatever reading I had to do for class the next day. And so, so I chose to do that. And, there are lots of gives and takes, things that, you learn along the way. That this is in regards to business school, at least. Whether you absolutely have to do this reading or this whatever, right? Like there might have been a circumstance where I had to write a paper and I just couldn't have talked for 2 hours, right? But prioritizing, knowing what's going on the next day. Again, had I not known what was coming up the next day, there could have been a giant paper due and I would have just botched it. So, I pull out that little paper book. And
good tool for you.
Yeah, works for me.
Yeah.
Works for me.
So now that you are in different stages of your life and you worked, you undergrad, you worked for a while, and now you're back in grad school. How does your approach, you shared some about avoiding the rat race, your priorities not to burn the candle at both ends per se, for lack of a better term, but like, what's your approach now to how you are thinking about creating and building a career for yourself? Because, and I want to hear your take and your add-on to this. When I talk with undergrad or younger students, I certainly emphasize and share a lot about being open to different opportunities. One of the best things you can do, especially in your early to mid-20s, is go out there and try a few different things. That's how you will really learn about things that you're good at and what you enjoy doing and how you provide value. Now that you're a little older and have worked, and now you're adding to your educational background, what's your approach to creating a career that you're going to love? Like, what are you thinking of doing? Not so much the exact kind of job, but how you're approaching it.
Well, and I think for me, the things that have helped me most and the things that helped me decide whether I should go back to business school or not even were those 3 tests. I recommend those 3 tests to everyone, the MBTI, StrengthsFinder, and Stand Out. I recommend those to everyone I talk to who's wondering what they should do, I got a buddy right now who's like, I should go back to school, I really don't want to be he works at customer service at eBay. And he kills it, he's awesome at it. And I said, well, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And he's not sure, which is fine. But I recommended those 3 to him too, because it helped me to understand where I was strong and where my opportunities for growth were, and I didn't know that before. And there are different books, different things that, based on the results of those tests, especially the MBTI, that tell you kind of what kinds of jobs would be good for you, or what things you would excel at, and that's actually driven a lot of what I'm looking at, whether it be, I'm looking into tech space because I like to see things built. I like to see things evolve over time. I like to be able to deliver something to somebody. I like to work on teams. I like to communicate with people. And these are all things that tech companies do. And so had I not known those things, it'd be a little less focused in where I'm looking or how I'm trying to go about finding my summer internship or my full-time job when I graduate.
You're feeling with the help of some of these tools and exercises that you've gotten to know more, know more about yourself, know some of your strengths, and are you finding that, like, you going through the classwork and the amount of, I won't say pressure, but the amount of things coming at you with work, like, is that also helping you evaluate like some of the things that you enjoy versus not enjoy, and what some of your strengths are?
No, absolutely. And so the first year of business school, grad school, is a lot of general courses: economics, statistics, accounting, marketing, classes every MBA student's taking, right? In second year, we get to diversify and focus more on those things that we are interested in. So definitely this first year has been, and the speed and the intensity at which it goes has definitely shaped me more than I anticipated. And it's definitely taught me things that I do and don't like. I'm not an accountant, for example. Will never be an accountant. And that's okay. It lets me know that I need to be surrounded by good people who are good at accounting,
right,
if I need that. But it's definitely opened my eyes as to the strength of surrounding yourself with good people. I've always believed in that, but now I can definitely see a greater application for it, and allowing myself to have those places where I'm not so strong, and leveraging those places where I do feel strong. Accepting that I just need to hire a really, really good accountant. Mm-hmm. That's what I need to do, and I can let them do that, and that's fine. So it's even learning those kinds of things through business school, and I'm sure you can learn. Lots of people learn that, right? You don't have to learn that at business school, but that's definitely been one of the bigger learnings for me, at least that I can think of.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I like hearing that you are recognizing that more and more as you're in business school. That is such a huge piece of our professional career, the ability to recognize our weaknesses, acknowledge our weaknesses, and know that we need to surround ourselves with people who are good at the things that we're not, and just other good people in general. We should surround ourselves. So it's great that you're sharing experiences of how you're recognizing this now as you go through school too. You're gonna. What's another? That's a great one. That's a really big one. What's one other piece of awareness, nugget of wisdom that you are learning or have come to see more clear since starting school that you know is going to have an impact on your professional career?
And this one may be more in regards to how I've seen other people burn out. And the cycles in business school are pretty quick, and so we bounce back, or we have the opportunity to learn from those mistakes a little bit quicker. But people, including myself, definitely including myself, who try to do things that don't align with who they are, seem to burn out quicker. So if you try to, so here at Boston University, they go by terms, right? Just like elementary school, there are 4 terms. The first term, I was a social butterfly, and learned real quick that if I tried to be everybody's friend and go do everything with everybody all the time, though I am an extrovert, MBTI, I'm an E, though I am and I find joy in that, if I don't listen to myself and listen to whether it's my body or my mind or where I'm at for the day, even on a daily basis, let alone like overall who am I, but like if my body's tired, like take a breather kind of thing. If I try to step outside that, then it hurts me more than I gain. And I've seen, I've got buddies in class who were sick for, weeks and weeks and weeks, and my guess is that they just overextended in whatever way it was for them.
Yeah. Why do you think we do that? What's your take? I know some of my take, but why do you think we as people push ourselves and or put ourselves in position to do that to our mental and physical and well-being when we know it's wrong? Are we trying to live up to other people's standards? Are we afraid of falling? What do you think is, why do we do that?
Lots of reasons. I guess in my experience, I would do that because I want to be liked. I want people to like me. I want to be the cool kid. I do. I want everyone to know my name. I want to be able to say hi to everybody in the hall. I want to be, I want to throw in a witty comment, so I've got to be up on all the, whatever's going on in the day. But I also want to be the smart guy, so I've got to then go, do all the homework. I've got to do it really well. And trying to overextend myself, I end up doing that. And that's me, right? Like, I think that each person has their own reasons that they would do that. In the end, I guess for me, it's just this idea of, and we talked about it, I can't remember if we were talking about it before we recorded this, but this idea of fear of missing out, right?
Mm-hmm.
This, if I'm not there with my buddies, are they going to do something that's really cool? Is something cool going to happen? Or, if I don't go to this networking event, or I don't, apply for this job, or I don't take this offer, is this going to be the only one that's out there? Or, I moved from Utah to Idaho to Utah to Connecticut to Utah to Washington to Utah to Boston. A lot of those moves based on, what if I never get an offer like this again?
You mean you took an opportunity because you thought it might be the only one like it that comes your way?
Or because I thought I was pretty sure it was the best offer I was going to get.
I see. Okay. Kind of like what a lot of people do in relationships when they settle with somebody because they're afraid they're not going to meet somebody else.
Sounds familiar.
Or they may not meet somebody
in
better.
the sense of like, yeah, this is the best that's going to come my way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
We're sitting talking with Bart Christoffersen today, MBA student at Boston University, and I have to tell you, I appreciate, this is one of the most honest, everybody I talk with, I feel is honest, but I'm saying that because, I think you're being very truthful, very honest, and genuine about your experiences right now. I can see it, I can hear it, some of your adjustments, you're doing great things. A lot of people would love to be at the Questrom School of Business at Boston University in the heart of Boston, getting their MBA, knowing that the opportunities that's going to bring. And what I love about sharing your story is that you bring, in addition to what we see on the surface, here are some of the underlying realities and things that are going to happen and have come up for you.
Yeah.
So I really, really appreciate that. You mentioned your family, and if you don't mind, if we can get into that a little bit, and how they, your father, and how that factor, and your kids are not local, and you're welcome to share whatever you like on that front. Like, how does that factor in, not only for your long-term plans, but also like your day-to-day here, when you have to do 10, 11 hours of work, class, and study, and you're thinking about your kids?
Yeah.
How does that all work?
I think that's kind of what's got me to where I'm at in terms of seeking in the future a work-life balance. My kids have made me who I am today, and they're my world. And they're not local; they're actually back in Utah right now. And it makes it difficult. I don't think I could have made this decision had we not had technology, FaceTime, to be able to see their faces. I think that would have been impossible. But where I'm at right now, I have been given a great opportunity to be here at this school, and they've got a really good program. And for me, it was a short-term sacrifice in certain ways. And I'll travel back and I'll see them a couple times a year. Hopefully I'll go back and get an internship for the summer and be able to be near them for that. Excuse me. But yeah, I think any parent, whether they're in a similar situation where they're separated from them or not, has to battle with the idea of managing their time so that they can create the best relationship with their children they possibly can. One of my best friends in the program has 3 little kids too, and he'll see them maybe when he wakes up. I think he leaves before they wake up most days, and he'll get back as they're getting ready for bed. And I think that's the life of any working parent, whether you've got both parents in the home, one parent in the home. If you're working, chances are you only get a couple hours with them, if not just one or less than one a day. And so how do you maximize that time to let them know that you care and to teach them and to be a good parent? I think it's a challenge everyone faces. So, for me, I do that over the phone for the most part. So,
and as you also have to juggle. Such an interesting part of your story too, as I've gotten to know you since last fall when we talked, is you have to take that into consideration. Your children are in Utah, and as you create your career path and the things that you want to do, you have that to not just weigh heavily. You have to really, that's a big factor and component, about, am I going to settle in Utah? What would you think, because I think this would be really helpful advice for people. And you may very likely end up back there. Your story still has some things to be written, but what would you say to somebody who's in a similar situation as you, who might have other opportunities coming that would draw them to other locations? But what are you learning about that feeling that you could share with other people who might be in similar situations where they have children in one place, but they might have career opportunities in another?
For me, I'm weighing. I'm trying to weigh it all. I've lived away from and worked away from my kids for a while. I lived away from them while I was working before I decided to go on to school, and so I've done that. And for me, I've decided that if there's anything I can do, if there's anything in my power to not do that. I've decided that for me, my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health, everything about me, it would be better to be close to them. So we were talking about like internships, for example. So I'm looking for an internship for the summer, and I've put all my eggs in the Utah basket. There's some folks here in Boston that I've been talking to that I keep in touch with. That should things not work out in Utah, that maybe I have someone to talk to here.
And you're open to that idea if need be to perhaps stay in Boston?
It wouldn't be my first or second or third or fourth choice, but if it was the only choice, I'd make it work. But I think again, it all comes down to knowing what's healthy for me. If I didn't know that, I'd either have to learn the hard way or have to soul search and find that out. And I did have to. I found out the hard way, a very hard way, that trying to live away from and work away from my kids was not a great experience. Despite the beautiful place that I lived in, despite the good people that I found. It was not good, and that was just solely based on my experience and based on what I found is good for me and my soul. So for others, I would just encourage them to really look at what does happiness look like? What, if you're not sure, then take some time to get in a quiet place and find out. It'll be worth it in the long run. Or you can do trial and experiment and learn the hard way.
Sounds like you've had a little bit of both. I love that. I think that's great advice, great wisdom. What I heard, you just summarized it really well, but what I was hearing from the start with that answer is you need to really get in touch with yourself and what you want, what is best. So your advice would be, I mean, there's different needs for different people, but your advice simply is learn and understand what's best for you, all around, mentally, physically, everything.
Well, and that's the idea behind the planner, right? Is that I don't think I know myself 100%, right? Like there's still things I'm finding out, I'm still open to, and trying to be accepting of those things. But the things that I do know, I try to be very intentional and aware of, and my planner keeps that in the forefront of my mind. So it makes these daily decisions much easier when it's right there in front of me, and I don't forget. I can't forget. There were lots and lots of years in my life where I either didn't know, or I forgot, or it wasn't in the front of my mind. And so there had to be years of learning to get to, like I said, a stupid little white planner where that represents what I've learned about me and just remembering me in the day-to-day kind of thing.
I'm going to throw that in the comments, the little white planner that makes a big difference in Bart's life.
It sounds so dumb. It does.
No, it doesn't at all, though.
But it does. It absolutely, it's a physical representation of what I've learned, and of my intent to continue to learn and not forget again.
You should write a story one day, and it doesn't need to be a book, but write and or share and tell a story about the role that planner has played in your life here. That in and of itself, I'm just telling you how I'm feeling and responding to it as I listen and get to watch you talk about it, that because it's meaningful and it will resonate with some, not everybody, but with some people that'll really resonate, that story. So something to think about.
Okay. Absolutely.
What do you have time? I know you've kind of dipped in and out of this. We're going to go about 5-10 more minutes, but a couple last things. Do you have? You seem to be really aware about taking care of yourself, but as a grad student, do you have time to, like for me, I know I make time each day to do separate journal, a little bit of exercise. Some days I get more exercise in. And there are times when be it a weekday or a weekend, where one of my forms of therapy and meditation is going for a drive.
Okay.
Do you, and just listening to music or a good podcast, do you get time for yourself with your current schedule to take care of yourself?
I have to plan it. I literally in my planner have times where I plan out food, right? Like otherwise I don't make time for food, and I run out of time. I got to go to the next class, or I got to go to the next thing, and so I have to plan again. I have to be very intentional about what I do, when I do it, what I can sacrifice, what I can't. And yeah, absolutely. I actually, one of my forms of self-care is audiobooks. I listen to an audiobook on the train in, on the train out, and sometimes when I'm falling asleep, right? Like it's just one of those things that it makes me feel good. And so whether that's a novel that I'm listening to, or I love Brené Brown, there's just something in books for me that I can't find anywhere else. And there are times I'll listen to music or just hang out or whatever, but no, I have to be very intentional about planning that though. I try. I mean, if I'm getting after it a lot, I'll plan what I eat. A lot of the time I don't have that time or that motivation. A lot of the time it's just like get in there and eat something like right now, like I gotta hurry. So One day I hope that there will be more intent around what I eat or how I eat. Opportunity for growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that I actually have been looking at this is going to be one of those things that I do one day or another. But like there's a website called Getaway, and it's there are these little tiny homes that are in Vermont or New Hampshire or whatever. And you go and there's no connection to anything, no Wi-Fi, no TV, no internet, nothing. You go and they have electricity and they have a tiny room with you just get to be out there with yourself, with nature, with quiet, and I think that would be really nice. So I look for things in addition to the day-to-day things that I feel help me be me and take care of me. I also try to find other things that I can plan out when I have more time, which there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of at times, but yeah, I think sorry, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but another thing for me is that I enjoy spending time with people, so I definitely try to allot time to be with people I care about, and so knowing those things about me, it allows me to plan for them and then do them, stick to plans, and if they need to change, they need to change. But if I didn't know those things about myself, I couldn't plan for them. I couldn't accomplish those things. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Yeah, I think it's great insight and advice, and we're all a little bit different, and for you, books and being around people and making some time for yourself really does matter. It makes a difference, and we all have our methods and our ways, and we get caught up sometimes, and we like to tell ourselves a story of I'm so busy and I have no time. We use those phrases all the time in our mind, and there's some validity to it, but we really need to, it's really important to make time for ourselves. Mm-hmm. There's so many ways we can do that. What would you, so thank you for sharing some of your ways, what would you tell a student or an incoming student? What would you say to somebody who either just applied or got accepted and is starting in the fall or whatever term? What would some of your wisdom be to them to be prepared for?
I think a lot of, and this was definitely myself, but a lot of students who come into grad school are pretty sure what the experience is going to be like. They're pretty sure that they know what's in store, that they know exactly how they're going to crush it. They know they're going to be top of the class. They know they're going to be a rock star. I guess that comes from the setup of how you apply for and take tests for and interview for. Business school is all very, very competitive. So they kind of set you up for that kind of mentality coming into it. And I would say that some of my biggest learnings or my biggest moments of growth have been from other people in the class, from other students who I've connected with. And so for me, business school is more about the community of people that I've met and become involved with. I'm sure I've learned statistics or finance or marketing or whatever the class was. I've gleaned a lot of stuff from that. But my advice to an incoming student would be to realize that business school isn't all about business class. That some of the biggest learnings or moments of growth will come from other places if you're open to it. And that maybe you don't have all the answers. Maybe there's this path in your life that has brought you here or taken you here, and you didn't know what was in store for you up until you got here. So just let it unfold and let it happen and embrace it. And what was it? Was it a book I read or a podcast that was like, embrace the suck? Just embrace how hard it is. Embrace it and surround yourself with great people, which it's easy to do at BU. It's easy to surround yourself with good people. And so embrace the suck, I guess.
I like that. Embrace the suck. I have heard that before, but I can't remember where, but I know I've heard it, but it's good. It works. Maybe we'll title this one Embrace the Suck too.
At times you just got to.
So this has been, like I've already said a few times, I think a very honest, open conversation, and I really appreciate that. I think it's great for people to hear how things really work, and I see a great future for you. But man, do I appreciate and I'm grateful for the honesty of there's changes. You really emphasize for me, one of my takeaways is just being very connected to and in touch with what's really going on, especially inside ourselves. We set up these expectations. Last nugget I'll share is in the corporate world, it's so you triggered something and that I remember that it's similar in that sometimes I've done it and I saw a lot of other people do it, where we go into a job wanting to live up to an expectation that we've created in our mind and in our head. And it seems like you've done it. I know it's hard. In fact, I've noticed changes since the first time we spoke, which is about 5 months ago. And it's hard work to do, but you're adjusting. You're adjusting. And I think sometimes people resist that adjustment because they want it to stay, they want it to live up to the expectations that they originally created for themselves. And ultimately, they do more harm to themselves when they do that.
Yeah, and I think that there are also expectations, maybe not just of the experience or the moment, but expectations of, for me it was people in my community, my neighborhood that I saw as super successful. And so I tried to mimic what they had done or what they would say or how they had acted. And that's what had worked for them in their life and their experience to get them to where they were at. But and though it might have been something good to learn and to have in my toolbox of things to do or say or behave, it didn't mean it was the right thing for me to do at the time. And so, again, trying to be someone I'm not, and I'm sure if you gave me time to think about it, I could think of an experience where I did just this, but trying to be Bob Jones. Bob, if you're watching, hi. I will forever look up to this man. Very successful, very, very good guy. But me trying to be Bob Jones, though he's a great guy and very successful, will not lead to my success as Bart Christoffersen. And knowing that there's a difference, that though I can do things that Bob does or behave ways that Bob does that are successful, until I'm me, trying to be successful as me, we'll get different results, I believe.
I don't want to add anything else to that. That's a great way to finish. That is good advice. It's great advice. It's good wisdom, and most importantly, it's really good perspective. So, Bart, thanks again for another really deep, honest conversation. And for everybody on the podcast, thanks for tuning in. And I would suggest, I definitely called out several nuggets of really good insight and wisdom from Bart. There's a few good things to take away from this one, so I appreciate you. Whether you're in school, grad school, or in the working force, I think you helped a lot of people with this conversation, so thank you. Yep. We'll do it again.
Absolutely.
All right. And thanks everybody you have a comment, by the way, from Jillian, who I know you know. Hey Jillian, if you're still hanging in and watching, so will you go in and comment back to her later?
Absolutely, I will.
So,
absolutely.
Thanks for checking us out. Sid, if you're still with us, good to see you as always. And tune in the future. Remember, around our whole mission with creating our grade is, what are we all doing to take ownership of our career and accountability so that we have our fulfillment? And Bart Christoffersen here for sure is somebody who's doing that. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.